Hello, my name is Michelle Smith. Today we're going to be talking about increasing labor participation through wellness. And I have with me here Laura, who's going to be talking about the wellness and introducing the topic. Jared, who's going to be defining job loss. Michelle, who's going to be discussing demographics of our area. And Mohammed, who's going to talk about risk impact of job loss. And Cassandra, who's going to be following up with worksite wellness programs, prevention, and recommendations. So our proposed question was, the governor of our state called a meeting of business leaders in academia to find out what was driving the loss of jobs in a section of our state. And after the economists had decided it was due to a lack of trained personnel, they determined that it would only account for 30% of the job loss in the section of the state. They determined that there may also be other reasons that they did not know and did not understand. And they thought that it would be in the best interest to address the public health and identify health causes in the area. The state health commissioner was approached and they asked us to please write something for the media to determine the health issues related to job loss in our region of the state. So I'm going to hand it off now to Laura.
All right, so I'll go over some of the introduction piece of our paper and presentation. So the governor asked us to address this question. As it stated before, only 30% of job loss is thought to be other factors. The rest is thought to be much health related, which is very broad. So we have broken up our text of our paper and presentation into a few areas to make it a little bit more specific. The first of that is participation rates, which will be covered much more in depth. The current disabled workforce in specifically Spokane County, so what that looks like and any prevention pieces that we can do to decrease the number of disabled workforce. The demographics for Spokane County specifically, so again addressing job loss in Spokane, what are the demographics included in that, and then the common diseases most impacting job loss within Spokane. Some of those include cancer, heart disease, stroke, Alzheimer's. Those will be discussed a little bit further detail. Some cost will be addressed because there's a great need for funding to fund either the worksite wellness, the education, the prevention, etc. to increase these job participation numbers. And then prevention will be talked about much later towards the end. Again, prevention and education to help prevent many of these diseases and therefore in turn increase that job participation.
Hi, my name is Jared. I'm going to be talking about defining the job loss. So labor participation rate is different than unemployment. A lot of people think of unemployment rate, which is the number of people that are current of the workforce that is currently looking for work. But to look at our question, a better metric to look at is looking at labor force participation, which labor force participation is taking a look at the number of people 16 and older that are actually involved in the workforce. So this peaked in 2000 at 67.3% of the population. As you can see on this graph, it started coming up. In the 50s, it started coming up because women started becoming part of the workforce, and having those people in the workforce made us peak out 2000 at 67.3%. Currently, we're going down, and we're now at 62.4%. The reasons for this are various reasons, including 16 and 18-year-olds are not participating in the workforce anymore. Retirees, the baby boomers are all retiring, and that's a huge loss of individuals exiting the workforce. And then a huge amount of the population is now participating in college, which didn't happen in the past. And this is really showing in the sense that even though unemployment's not at a record low, job offerings are at a record high. There is currently 5.5 million job offerings, which has never been higher. So we're gonna look at what we can affect on the labor participation rate, which is trying to decrease the disabled population. So the disabled population makes up 30 million individuals in the US job market, which makes up 11.9% of the workforce. When you take a look at this, how many are actually looking for work and the ones that aren't, it makes up 9% of the workforce. So almost 1 out of 2 of people of labor age are not participating because of disabilities. If you look at the labor force participation of non-disabled versus disabled, disabled only participate 19.4% of the disabled population participates in the workforce versus 68.4% of non-disabled. And then unemployment, that's people looking for work, is 10.5 for the disabled compared to 4.6 for the non-disabled. So you can see this makes a profound impact on the labor force. Another thing that happens is when people get injured in the workforce, but they're not disabled, they return to the workforce, this leads to a loss of productivity, and this leads to employers needing to hire more employees to make up for the loss of productivity. The average lost productivity, the average worker lost 40 days of work per claim in Washington last year, and there was 90,000 claims, 80,000 were accepted, and this cost a total of $2.13 billion last year in Washington alone.
All right, so now we're going to look at Spokane specifically. So out of all the people in the workforce, they count that 16 years of age or older. 1% are in the armed forces, so that would include like Fairchild, Air Force Base. 91% are just in the civilian workforce. And then the 8% are unemployed, which those are people who are actively looking for jobs within 4 weeks is what they consider unemployed. As Jared said, it doesn't include retirement, it doesn't include people in college or disabled. Right, you can go to the next slide. All right, and so these are the disease rates in Spokane right now. So cancer is about 21%, heart disease is 17%, which is not surprising because those are around national average. Chronic lower respiratory disease, unintentional injury, stroke, and diabetes. And since people are staying in the workforce longer, Alzheimer's disease is becoming more of an issue too. And also we're including in our project, we looked at other factors such as education, because education can affect your socioeconomic status, the jobs you can apply for, resources you have access to, like healthcare, which can also affect your disease capabilities or the disease you can get. So I'm going to hand it over to Mohammed.
Yes, like Michelle said, education is a key health indicator to health and well-being, and it could also lead to the lifestyle habits that you may practice. And research proved that individuals who are less likely to have a college degree are more likely to smoke. So lifestyle habits could mean like things like smoking tobacco, drinking, and those are also risk factors in the workplace. And age is also another risk factor at workplace, because the more you work, the more you will produce at the workplace, and also older people tend to be are prone to disease like diabetes, heart diseases, and the chronic diseases. And hereditary is also another key factor at the workplace, because more people are prone to get some hereditary diseases, and that could also play a role how long they could stay at the workforce. Occupational hazard is also lack of physical activity. Inactivity is also another key factor, because the more the person is overweight, the less likely they're going to be productive at workplace. So therefore, physical inactivity could increase their work productivity, occupational hazards also plays another key role, because if the workers are exposed to an work environment which is unhealthy for them, they are more likely to get sick. And impact of and the impact depends on the workplace, but there are also direct and indirect impacts, including loss of wages and productivity within workplace. Employee turnover, when employees are absent or sick and they don't simply show up to work, they are more likely to be replaced. And then in that, there's a process of rehiring another employee. You have to recruit them, you have to hire them. So it will increase the work. It will increase the cost, and the employee may not understand the process of work right away. Injuries. Injuries is also another impact that faces workplace, and if the more people are overweight, the more likely they may engage injury, and even if they do get injured, they are less likely to recover. And disability also plays a factor on the duration of the employee, how long they can stay at work, and that could also lead to a premature death.
Okay, to talk a little bit about these interventions, many employers are starting to develop workplace wellness programs, and they're doing this because it impacts a chronic disease on employee health, well-being, the cost of healthcare, and job competitiveness. In order to maintain or develop these programs, the CDC actually recommends using 4 steps: assessment, planning, implementation, and evaluation. Through these interventions, it addresses multiple risk factors and diseases concurrently. And also through these interventions, it influences an organization's multiple levels that includes individual employees and the organization as a whole in making them healthier. So to talk a little bit more about the recommendations for prevention, looking at these specific diseases and injuries, they kind of overlap a little bit. So a lot of these diseases can be prevented from just developing and maintaining a healthy lifestyle with exercising, proper nutrition, yearly screenings. For occupational hazards, utilizing engineering controls, modification of work practices, and administrative controls are recommended for kind of getting away from those injuries. It's all preventative. Cancers, yearly screenings for breast, cervical, prostate cancers, getting vaccinated. The HPV vaccination is a big thing right now in women. And just being smoke-free, limiting your alcohol use, protecting your skin, having a healthy diet, and maintaining a healthy weight and lifestyle overall is definitely a way to prevent cancers. Heart disease is a preventable disease. It can also be managed by a lifestyle change. Again, healthy lifestyle, nutrition, exercising, not smoking. And then chronic respiratory disease, it comes in many different intervention approaches. We've seen organizations offering health insurance that have specific workplace policies, such as smoke-free campuses, health promotion programs, again, and just having proper communication of these risks. And next we'll have Laura for our conclusion.
Okay, So to wrap up our entire presentation, as you can see, increasing labor participation is very complex. There's several components, several factors that have to be completed to achieve successful increase in these rates. Education and prevention for both the workplace as well as the employer. As Cassandra touched on, there's a lot of education and prevention for the employer, but it's also, or the employee, it's also important for the employer to educate their employees on how to do this. So it could look like, again, a worksite wellness program, health screenings. Some companies are basing your health insurance based off your health factors, so things like that, giving their employers incentives. Obviously, it's costing employers a great deal of money when their employees are less healthy. And then again, funding for these successful interventions. It costs employers a great deal of money when they have disabled or employees with a lot of ailments. But at the same time, it's going to cost a lot of money to fix these things. So whether it's federal funding, state funding, local funding, these worksite wellness programs aren't free. So there's got to be funding somewhere to initiate and sustain these programs. Questions for cyberspace?
Thanks for watching.
Thank you.